Hello and welcome to my Allo Mother podcast. I'm your host, Celeste Smith. This podcast is focused on educating and helping mothers navigate our fast-moving and transitory lifestyle, looking through the lens of anthropology. I am a maternal anthropologist on a mission to support mothers around the world because, let's face it, we weren't meant to do this alone. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to have my friend Amber here on the podcast today. Thanks, Amber.
Happy to be here.
So, Amber and I met in Portland, Oregon when my husband was in his first year of medical school. So she met me at a very vulnerable time of my life. and she has been there and helped me in more ways than five. So I am so excited that you can meet her today. So, Amber, will you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, so I'm Amber. I have two kiddos of my own. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. We live in Portland still. I'm by and large a stay-at-home mom, and then I also teach toddler science classes on the side, kind of as a hobby businessy thing. My husband's a computer engineer, and yeah, I grew up all over the world. My dad was in the Air Force growing up, so that was an adventure. And then I got a degree in biomedical engineering from the University of Utah. And then I taught high school physics for a few years, and then I started making babies and decided to stay home. And then I decided maybe I shouldn't stay home all the time. And now I'm sort of doing my teaching thing. So that's short order of me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's sad we didn't run into each other at the U, but at least we have that connection. I love it.
Yes.
Go Utes. Oh, that's so awesome. Awesome. Yes, I want to talk about the little lab at the end, so we'll get to that. And so, yeah, it has been fun for me to watch your growing family because you were pregnant with your first when I met you, so it was pretty cool. So we were just talking for a moment before this about how you grew up, yeah, as a military family. And so tell us a little bit about how that shaped you and going into motherhood.
Well, I think anybody who has grown up in the military or has friends who are in the military will know that you move a lot. And so because you move all the time, you're kind of forced to make friends quickly and also be able to leave friendships behind quickly and move past them. And then also, I would say, growing up in the military, I have 4 siblings, so I was able to see like how that affected my siblings. So it was really hard on some of my siblings, and like a few of us thrived. Like I did really well with it just because of my personality. And so that made me think a lot about like when I have my kids, do I want to stay in one place? Do I want to move around? So I'd say like the military in general makes me more open to moving around. Like I'm not as afraid of other places and like new experiences. Like I know that I can make friends in any place I go to. Um, and then it's made me more of an aggressive friend maker in terms of like trying to build a community. When I get somewhere, like have like this stake in the ground, like I will build my community. Because that's just what I've had to do like my whole life.
Wow. Yeah, that is really interesting how different personalities. I can see how someone would have a super hard time making connections and then being ripped out of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, I have watched you and I've noticed your very chill personality. And I love it. And I love how you mother like that too. And you just let your kids explore. And so I guess you made a move, so you came to Oregon. And how did you get the help you needed? Since we're talking about allo mothers, getting help from anybody, especially when you move to a new place. What was your strategy for coming in and having a baby? And then how did you get the help that you needed?
Yeah, I was fortunate when we moved here that we had like a really strong church community that we kind of just slipped into. And so I feel like they really took up that mantle of like we're surrounding you and helping you through this. Like they brought meals to us, they helped clean our house, they would come and just hold my older son while I would lie dead in the in the bedroom trying to sleep for a few minutes and not being able because I was too stressed because I was a new mom.
Yeah.
And just kind of fulfilling all of those roles. And then as we kind of like progressed, it moved more to like other friendships that I had made in the time, and then also like paid help. Like we definitely, because we don't have any family around like anywhere,
Yeah.
and our parents aren't like super travelers, like they're not going to come out 3 times a year. We might see them once a year. Um, we just knew that we had to hire help for our sanity. So we have different like daycare and preschool. We have like a house cleaner that comes sometimes to help out, things like that, just to pad the parenting experience a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. So you had at the beginning you had some help that was just kind of like you didn't really have to ask. It just kind of
Yeah,
came.
yeah, which was really fortunate. We're really grateful that we had that because it's not common. And talking to friends that are not in like any sort of church community or other strong community group, like it's not it's really hard to replicate that outside of those larger institutions like
Yeah.
churches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So you had that help immediately and just yeah, kind of didn't have to ask for it. And then was it hard to I mean, and maybe it's not because you kind of had that moving around growing up, but was it like a hard realization to be like, okay, what do we do now? Like I'm burned out. And how did you, what was your process in like reaching out for just a little deeper help, like more often you could depend on, like what was important to you in that type?
Ooh. That was a really tricky one because I had this like ideal in my mind of the mother that I was supposed to be. And I had this ideal of like how I was supposed to feel about my child, how I was supposed to feel about myself, how I was supposed to feel about like my relationship with my spouse, about all of these aspects of my life. I had been told that like I would feel a certain way, you know, like we have all media, we have just everything around us is sending us these messages about like what this is what it's going to be like and it's going to be great. And
Yeah.
and then that was not my reality. Like there was no instant connection with my child. Like it came after a few weeks, but like it was a few weeks of being like, I birthed this thing, I don't want it to die, but I'm not feeling the lovey-dovey's because it's like I had a really traumatic birth with him. And
Hmm.
yeah, so that was really hard up front. And I also didn't realize at the time that I had really bad postpartum depression. I had
Oh,
no idea until I was like into my second pregnancy that I
really?
like even dealt with that. Which sounds counterintuitive, but I had high functioning depression, which
Hmm.
is and so the asking for help thing was really difficult because my mind was like mired in this kind of self-guilt thing where I thought I just had to like persevere and like push through.
Yeah.
And I would see other mothers who had like more children or who were like seemed to be externally struggling more. And I was like, oh, I think everybody must have it like this hard. But you can't like open up your mind and show it to someone and have them be like, your mind is normal or your mind is not normal. You know, like
Right. Yeah.
you can't know that. Um, and so it took my husband convincing me that we should just have like that valve, the like pressure valve release of extra help.
Yeah.
And that was when I was newly pregnant with my second, is when we finally started having like someone else to help out. And it was just such a relief, such relief. And that was like the beginning of me even like being able to have the space to acknowledge that I had like the postpartum depression and deal with it and all
Wow.
of that. So yeah, it was a journey. It was so hard for me to like be like, yes, let's put our child in daycare like 2 mornings a week.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. Um,
Yes.
But I think sometimes that does happen when until you have like a small break, then you're like, whoa, I have not been feeling normal. Or you start to kind of
Hmm.
feel yourself because you have a little bit of space.
Hmm.
It's scary. It's scary when you think like, oh, I can you kind of realize like I should have asked for help earlier, but I didn't even have the space to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you like feel almost stupid, but then you just like, there's just no room because you're in like crisis mode and
Yeah.
your brain is not. So like, I was so thankful for Sam that he was just like, Amber, what you're doing is crazy. Like, you have no time off. Like, you're obviously not thriving. Like, let's just get a little bit of support and like our son will be happier and you will be happier and I'll be happier. And like, we're not supposed to be doing this alone anyways. So the fact that we're trying is just silly.
Wow. Yeah, that is so key. I've written a blog post about how the best allo parent we really can depend on is our spouse because
Yeah.
they've seen our pre-birth self and they can see after and they can read our emotions. So three cheers for Sam for noticing and speaking up for you because sometimes we just really need someone to yeah, kind of be like, okay, let's make a plan. Like life can be hard, but it doesn't have to be this hard. Like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
that is so amazing. And I think it's a little tip for because I think first time moms, like when you see them, they just look really glowy and they're tired because you've done this before. But it's like we really can for people on the outside that want to be better allo mothers, or helpers to especially those young moms, like just don't hesitate to like help a young mom even though they think they're okay until they know they're not okay. Like there's just things like you can really jump in it. That is such a vulnerable time. That first, I would say 2 years, first 2 years of a child's life is a lot. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, it is.
That is amazing. So the hardest part you'd say of reaching out is really just in your own expectations, right?
Yeah, it was renegotiating like what it meant to me to be a successful mother, to include being able to get help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So then as you continued on, then you had your second baby, and at what point did you feel like I'm going to run science classes now? Because I think that is so incredible that I have named you like I can see you're like an allo mother. You have really young kids. You have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. But even though you have super young kids, you're like you've reached out to the community and you're doing these adorable science classes. And I'm just like, this is how mothers are so incredible. It's like, wait, you have two tiny kids, but you're running classes for fun for other, parents and children. So how did you manage having the capability to reach out to others even though you have really small kids?
Well, I think it's kind of an interesting combination of personality and opportunity and a whole lot of things.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of it boils down to the fact that like I am kind of a natural teacher and that I thrive off of being in groups of people and like directing groups of people. And
Wow.
so where I wouldn't necessarily do like little science projects with my own children, I will happily create a whole lesson plan and put them on for like a group of children. And like suddenly like I'm on the stage and I just like go into my teacher mode and it's just a magical thing.
Wow.
And I think that's just like a personality trait that I have. And so in that way I'm just like I'm lucky that that's what I like to do. And that is where that side of it comes. So like where some people maybe would be in a crowd and it drains them, for me
Yeah.
it's like invigorating. And if I had a morning just to myself, kind of twiddling my thumbs, not doing much of anything, I would be less prepared emotionally to deal with like the rest of the day with my kids than I would be if I like teach a science class in the morning. Even though it's like tiring, it's so fulfilling to me to do that that it like kind of buoys me up for the rest of the day, if that makes sense.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
That's amazing.
I know it's like a weird, it's kind of a strange thing, but like that's just how my brain works. And so like basically I just got to this point where I was trying to figure out like what do I want to do next. I knew that I wanted to be less full time with my kids. I wanted some sort of like a part-time flexible job. Um, and teaching has always been like something I loved. And so I was trying to find a way to do teaching. And so I tried tutoring for a little while, but it just
Oh, yeah.
wasn't doing much for me. And I just came up with the idea and it started out really slowly. I just did like once a month for a while and then I just kept adding classes and now it's a bunch and now I'm at a point where I might like taper them back down again. It's nice because it's so flexible. I can
Yeah.
do whatever I need to be like mentally healthy and emotionally healthy. It's kind of the goal of doing them. And also and as far as the reaching out to other people goes, I just like love the idea of creating these communities. And now I feel like most of my friends are not in any sort of church community and just seeing like how kind of sad it is to be outside of that sort of a system
Yeah.
where there's just like no one. It's just like you and this abyss of other people that are also viewing all by themselves. And like there's just there's just no support system. And so I love the
Yeah.
idea of creating more of that community and more of the um that connectedness between moms. Just like a space that people could come together and exist. Yeah. And it was kind of also on the heels of COVID, where
Oh.
there was so little available for those years. And it was just like this chasm of like, there's no story time, there's no anything.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just, it's, yeah. So it's a little bit of bounce back of that as well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you started a great time. I think that's yeah, having a community is so important. Some people don't, even though they go to church, sometimes they don't end up having a lot of close friends come from that community. So
Yeah.
either way, it can be isolating, whether or not. But I think the fact that you took your talents and like you just knew how you could thrive by having a break, but also teaching with your kids, bringing them along and bringing that community. Like that's just, there are so many mothers that feel so isolated, and that's just what we need. Like we just need a place to
Yeah.
go with our kids, with people that understand where we are at that moment in time. And I mean, kids just, I love the pictures you post about the classes and kids love that stuff.
Yeah.
Those simple things learning that way is just amazing. So the fact that like that you're creating a community is so huge.
Yeah. And can I just add that like I feel like mothers, especially new mothers, are such an untapped resource in our world because they demand a large degree of flexibility that's just really hard to accommodate in like our typical 9 to 5 or like
Oh,
you have 10 days of vacation a year.
yeah.
Use every single one of those for your sick children. Um, and like I just feel like it's so good for moms to be able to have other aspects of themselves, and to have places where they can thrive. And like, I wish that there were more opportunities, more spaces where mothers could go in and be like, these are some skills that I have, and I would love to contribute to the community through these skills or whatever, and like have that, be able to fulfill that part of themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish. That's my I wish.
Yes, that is yeah, exactly. I mean, I definitely hit a point. I probably had I'm trying to think of how old they were. I imagine Daniel was 6 months to a year old, so my oldest was, you know. 2. Um, 2.5. But I hit a point where that's all you're doing every day. And my husband was a busy master's student, gone all day, all night. And
Mm,
you just sit there and you're like, is is there anything I can do besides what I'm doing? And it's a really hard spot to be stuck in. And I feel like I've finally come out of it. And it just, like, what is your advice for moms that it's like, actually, there's a point years in motherhood, the early years of motherhood, where I was like, I forgot who I was. I didn't remember what my talents were, what I like to do. Like, I just,
yeah,
for some people, I'm just like, hey, Amber has this amazing, degree, and it's obviously like you can touch people with that. Well, that's only one of your gifts, but that's one thing that's so cool that you can give. And so for some people, at least for me, it just didn't feel obvious and I felt lost. And that place was really hard to be in. When I felt like I had lost, I just didn't remember who I was. Like,
yeah,
buried deep under the mother. So what is your best advice for someone kind of like buried, but on their journey to figure something to do besides, because like you're saying, it's just so important to have um something else on your mind to help you keep you going. So,
yeah. In a perfect world, I think that mothers should have the access to like free childcare. I feel like I didn't have the mental space to even start thinking of doing like a side business until I had like 6 months of just a few mornings a week to myself. Like it took a long time just to slowly unbury myself. And there, and I've had this conversation with a lot of moms, like you said, you just like you can't even think about
no.
what you like and like what
Yeah.
your dreams and your hobbies are because you've had to access this beautiful part of yourself that allows you to take care of little tiny creations.
Hmm.
And it takes a while to like shut down those like fight or flight almost instincts that keep us going
Yeah.
crazy nights and days.
Yeah.
Um, so like the gift of time, like I wish that every mom could have just more free time that they could have to themselves to recharge and rejuvenate. Um, and just like the gift of patience with yourself that like it's not going to happen immediately the first time you think about what
Mm.
you want to do. You're going to not have any ideas probably.
Yeah.
And like you just have to keep coming back to it and keep coming back to it and allow yourself to like to blossom very gently like a beautiful rose. Um, but I feel bad even saying that time is like the best thing to help me because I know so many women don't have access to that.
Yeah.
It's a privilege of being able to afford that. Or having grandparents or someone nearby that can support you, or other moms who will like exchange children with you for amount of times. There are ways to do it, but I
Yeah.
know it's a challenge from speaking to other moms. It's not as simple for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
those are perfect things. I think even just giving moms those ideas to chew on, like, okay, I just need time over and over again to be able to think. That's what happened is I would kind of like my need for time alone would build so bad and then I'd be like kind of explode. I'd just be like, I just
Yeah.
need some time. And so my husband's like, yeah, I'll give you some time or whatever. I'd find time and I would just sit there and I
Yeah.
had no idea where to start because it was like I'm sitting here. I want to do the laundry. I want to fold the
Yes.
laundry. The kids are gonna, oh, it's 4 o'clock, so I gotta start making dinner. And then it's like, oh, I don't, my husband doesn't know when to, I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
like first you sit there and you're like, I gotta clean. And then I would literally just, even if I did swaps with people to have a break for a few years, I honestly would just clean. Like, that's all I could do. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, but then at the end of the time that was I had, whether whoever was had my kids, whether it was my husband or not, like I'd be like, okay, now it's time to pick them up. But I'm like, oh, I wanted to read that book. Or like, oh, I like I wanted to I don't know. Like I wanted to write out my like I love vision boards, so it's like, oh, I would have loved to like so it was after the fact that I thought of things that I would want to do. It was
Yeah,
years of just actually cleaning the house, which is that's how it's you know
that's
sometimes
so
like that's all you can do is you kind of just do what you're doing, and it takes like a lot of free time, chunks of time, whatever you can get to actually think about what you want to think about.
It's funny you describing that and saying that you cleaned, because in my mind I was like, oh, I can totally relate. And then you said, and I just cleaned the house, and I was like, oh, I just sat there feeling guilty about not cleaning the house, and then went and picked up my children because of the postpartum depression and anxiety. It just adds like another like a blanket of suffocating non inaction. But
Oh yeah, not that my whole house wasn't clean, maybe like just the dishes. I mean,
yeah, no, I
it
think
wasn't the
that's a
whole.
good, that is the right way to do it. Like I've realized now, like 4 years into this journey, that like it is so much better to just do the thing that you're anxious about, or just like start doing it.
Oh.
Like take the first step is what they say, right? Like you take the first step and then you just kind of slip into the task and not think about like the whole thing you have to do. And that's just, yeah, makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, all in the mindset of yeah, once you realize, actually, one time I listened to a podcast about the mental load that we each have. And
Mm,
so one time, it was a couple of years ago, I sat down because I was feeling so much. And so I wrote down everything I was thinking about, keeping track of just in life and stuff I
mm,
wanted to do. It was a few pages long. And I just
yeah.
did like a bullet point for each little thing. Like, I mean, little things like gotta do the laundry.
Yeah.
Every day I need to prep the dinner, meal plan. And it was just pages and pages and pages of things that are on my mind. Like, and so once you kind of see your mental load on paper, that's what
Mhm.
really opened my eyes. And I was like, Michael, look, this is what's on my mind, you know? And I show him and he's like, oh, okay. And then we started to be able to kind of share the mental load because he can see me like at 4 o'clock, he'll be like, you seem like you have a lot in your mind. And, so then he's kind of like, what can I do? Because it seems like, you're trying to do everything, which is mothers are amazing. Like we just do it. But it does take like seeing your mental load so you can kind of share it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, there's like some therapist who made a game. It's like the mental load game, I think is maybe what it's called. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
It's basically like they just made little cards of all the things, and it's like an activity to do with your partner. Uh, Probably take things off of your chest of whoever the person is who bought it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did Sam just jump in um during just those first, well, I guess all the time, but when you first had your first, did he jump in a lot or did you have to kind of like did you ask for specific help or how did that work with?
I think we were both kind of just train wrecking it along. Like he was trying to help in the best way he could. I was trying to ask for help in the best way I could. But it's one of those things where we were just like both so sort of deranged with sleep loss and just like, holy crap, this is parenthood. Just we were very blindsided by parenthood. Going from 0 to 1 was much, much harder than 1 to 2 for us.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because that initial shock was just like it was, yeah. But like our original plan was to not have anybody at the hospital, to not have any help after having the baby. Like,
Wow.
don't come out yet, mom. Like, we're fine. We're gonna be great. I'm sure my mom was like rolling her eyes, but that was kind of we had some delusions there of grandeur and beautiful, beautiful images in our mind. So no, it was really hard. It was a lot of work on both of our parts, and it took a while. And is still like a life pursuit. I feel like trying to find balance and communicate. Communication is like, I feel like there have been periods of time, sometimes like months long, where we've both like harbored a lot of resentments. And it's just it's just hard being a parent, and like opening those channels of communication is sometimes so vulnerable for us. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
the
Like,
communication is like no, I feel like there's no like perfect answer. Like, because as the kids get older, it's like your needs change and their needs change. And
mm,
so then it's like the communication has to change like because the needs change. You're like, "Oh,
yeah.
because like now we can look back and be like, oh, like if when my baby was 6 weeks old, I would have directly asked something directly and simple, like, can you please hold him while I shower? Like just, but you just don't think about it
Hmm.
as much till your kids are older, but then they have other needs. So then it's, yeah, it is. It's a life pursuit to
Yeah. And I
figure
think
that out.
like we very something that really helps us is that we very consciously give each other breaks, or like act as the other person's allo parent, if you will,
Wow.
on the weekends. And so like Saturday morning, one of us will sleep in and not be in charge of the kids in the morning. And then Sunday morning, the other person will do that. And so like that's just really nice. It's like a little bit of time that you can count on for yourself. Just like being able to sleep in feels so good.
Yeah. Oh my
Even if
gosh,
you can hear your children downstairs crying or whatever, you were in bed and not responsible.
right, you're not responsible. Oh, I love that idea. Wow. So a weekly, I'm just saying this is amazing. This is an amazing thing. So every week, so I guess every week you kind of switch off on those particular days,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And we also have a weeknight that we do something similar, not necessarily as often, but like Sam has his pickleball night where I
Oh,
handle like all the bedtime. And then like sometimes when I have him, I have like pottery classes I do. And so
oh,
then Sam handles everything for that on my pottery nights. And so yeah, those are really nice for us.
oh, wow. I feel like that's those, I call those now, I call those anchors. Like when
Hmm.
I really feel like I can depend on, excuse me, I can really depend on that day, that time. It really like erases some of that mental load. Like for just
Yeah.
even that section of time for that day, it makes a huge difference to have those anchors. So I love that idea. Oh, that's so great. That is so
Yep.
awesome. And then you both have found kind of yeah, pickleball or pottery,
Hobby.
things that,
Yeah. But also like an escape little. You don't have to do bedtime for one night. It feels really great.
wow. Yeah, and that's really incredible that you do that because for some people that have their parents close by, you could probably do that easier and more often to be like, okay, Friday date night, bye, and just, hand over your kids. But like that you've created that type of system because you two have got each other. And
Yeah.
so like you've just made that, I think that is super amazing. Wow. My mind is blown. I love that. That is awesome. Well,
Yes.
amazing. Okay, my last question I wanted to ask was if an allo mother or allo parent came knocking at your door tomorrow morning and could give you just anything at all that would help you right now with your 4-year-old and 2-year-old and just everything you have going on, and they just could give it to you, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. The first thing I thought of is that I want someone to clean out my garage for me. Just like, maybe not.
Oh,
Like,
that's perfect.
but that's just like the thing that's looming in my mind. That's a no. Like you get just that nagging thing that's a big task. You just don't want to do it, but you should do it, and it just gets worse and worse. And blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
That's our
yeah.
garage right now. And so, um, but if you had asked me like 3 hours ago, I would have just been like, take my children somewhere to like burn off some steam, and I'm gonna go take a bath.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, that's perfect. Yeah, I love it. Those are great. The garages they are something else. They're just an always project. So I understand.
Yeah. they grow, they have life.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, that is awesome. Well, thank you so much for what you shared. I already have personal ideas that I want to implement my own life to like, let off that steam and not try and do it all by myself. So anyway, thank you for all you've shared. And yeah, it's just been amazing to chat with you. So
Thank you for chatting with me. I'm going to do a final plug for therapy for people. I feel like it's very important that if you feel in your mind that something is wrong, that you talk to somebody about it, whether it's a professional or whether it's your partner or just like somebody who you can talk to and really have like the conversation you need to have. Like do it, because that's how you like turn the page and start getting better and moving forwards. Anyways,
oh,
thank you for
yes, that is such a good plug. I feel like, I mean, I can be a talker, and sometimes my husband just doesn't have the time to hear all that I need to process.
Yeah. And
And
oftentimes we don't have the capacity or the capability or the tools to respond effectively to people. Like you can hear their problem and think
oh,
that you're saying the right thing back to them, but like unless you're a professional or have certain training, sometimes you can't. And that's okay.
yeah.
Find the right person to talk to.
Yeah, there is serious magic in someone from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Like their
Yeah.
perspective can be like, oh, okay, thank you for noticing that, or like for when you say something and they're like, did you just hear what you just said? And they repeat it back and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, I am having a hard time, and so yeah, that is a great tip. It's there is no shame in like reaching out to an outside person because your spouse really loves you. And yeah, sometimes you just need, well, an outside person looking in, but also, yeah, like you said, the tools. And it just helps you let it go and
Yeah.
move on.
Yes. Yep.
That is
Thanks
true. That is a
for
good.
having me on your podcast, Celeste.
You're welcome. It's been awesome. Thanks so much for listening in today. I hope that you got ideas of how to improve your overall well being and life as a mother. If you have a friend who could use a lift, please share. You can also read more deeply about anthropological principles applied to our modern day world by subscribing to my blog, maternalanthropologist.substack.com. See you next time.